There's a very interesting statistic that's going around as a result of a Credit Suisse Research Institute paper that somehow manages to show that there are more poor people in the United States than there are in China. That sounds very hard to believe. People in Section 8 housing in the United States are poorer than landless peasants or migrant workers. Tens of millions of migrant workers. So that's rather a strange claim to make, but as one would expect, First Worldists have been running around citing this report as proof of the so-called third world status of the United States. However, one really only has to take a single critical look at the report to see what's wrong with it. To determine how global wealth is distributed across households and individuals rather than regions or countries, we combine our data on the level of household wealth across countries with information on the pattern of wealth distribution within countries. Once debts have been subtracted, a person needs only $3,210 US to be among the wealthiest half of world citizens in mid-2015. However, 68,800 is required to be a member of the top 10% of global wealth holders and 759,000 US dollars to belong to the top 1%. While the bottom half of adults collectively own less than 1% of total wealth, the richest decile holds 87.7% of assets, and the top percentile alone accounts for half of all total household wealth. Did you catch that? Let me give you a bit of a hint. To determine how global wealth is distributed across households and individuals rather than regions or countries. There you go. How about this one? Once debts have been subtracted. In other words, because first world people have access to financial capital, meaning they can borrow money, they're now no longer considered wealthier. In other words, because they hold debt, they deduct what they have from what they owe, and so therefore are poor. And a lot of what is cited is actually mortgages. Now, you see, the problem with that is that mortgages have a house, and a house is an asset that's worth something. By this logic, just because you have a lot of money, but you also have a lot of debt, you're now therefore poor. I guess Donald Trump and the astronomical amount of debt that he holds as just part of being a businessman now makes him one of the poorest people in the world. This is just absolutely ridiculous. Basically, all it's really saying is that because first world people have debt from credit card or mortgages, they're therefore poor. I mean, and that's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the first world is a place where even if you're poor, your children still go to school. Actually, by law, they still go to school. They still have Medicare. They still get food from food banks. They still get shelter from homeless shelters, or in the case of children, they get a placement by child care agencies. In other words, if you live in a developed country that has a welfare state, even one that's not really all that great, like the United States, you're still astronomically better off than you are in the third world. Now, all these benefits, like food stamps, Section 8 housing, homeless shelters, and all of that is purchased by the super exploitation of the third world. In other words, the global inequality that, according to this study, largely doesn't even exist. So you really start getting a really clear picture of how horrible these statistics are when trying to determine levels of wealth across the world, and how completely uncritical first worldists are. They just see, oh look, it says that there's more poor people in China and the US, then they reblog that article and then go on to claim it's true. You see how poor workers are in the first world? I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, when's the last time you heard of mass amounts of deaths in the first world as a result of malaria? And it's simply ridiculous. This is just another one of those instances where first worldists are trying to make first world people out to be poorer than they actually are in order to justify their out-of-date Marxist theory. By the third worldist position must therefore be wrong because here's this study which has proven to, which I've just demonstrated alone, not to mention what other people have demonstrated, is completely ridiculous. No, there are not more poor people in the United States than there are in China. It's ridiculous. First worldists don't even have a critical eye because they're too busy trying to make themselves out to be victims of the global order when they are not only the beneficiaries, but the perpetrators of it. If you like this video and you'd like to see more of them, then head over to my Patreon page and show your support. Or you can go to the MRN bookstore and check out some of the latest books available. Don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe, and share on various social media.